All right, good evening. Welcome to the Titusville Environmental Commission. We're glad you're here, and I guess we'll start with roll call.
Chairwoman Thompson,
Here.
Vice Chairman Myjack, Member Tucker,
Here.
Member Perez,
Here.
Member Delgado,
Here.
Member Fliss,
Here.
Alternate Member Young,
Here.
Alternate Member Kosi.
All right, thank you, Lori. So we got a quorum. Now we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. You guys had a chance to look them over? Somebody want to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All right. A motion was made by Member Perez and seconded by Member Tucker. Does anybody have anything they want to see changed or anything? I thought they looked really good, as usual. Lori does a great job. You guys okay with them? All right, all those in favor of the minutes with no changes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes pass unanimously. Let's move on to petitions and requests from the public present. And what I want to say, I want to reiterate that there's going to be plenty of opportunity for the public to participate in the discussion of this fabulous study that we're going to be talking about tonight. So you don't need to talk about that if you want to talk under petitions and requests. And, you know, while I'm on a roll here, you know, anybody that wants to speak, they can speak for 5 minutes. I would like for the committee members to please hold your questions and then allow everybody their opportunity to speak for 5 minutes. And then after that's done, when we go into the committee discussion, then you guys are welcome to call anybody back up to the mic that you would like to. And I think that will help us move the meeting along a lot faster. So we're moving on to petitions and requests. Does anybody want to talk about non-agenda items? Hey, Tony.
Tony Schiffalo, the historic Norwood House. I'm just here tonight because I was here last night. I think I live here. I just wanted to say that the meeting last night, there were 2 things on council's agenda about the TEC, and they both had were met with a lot of questions. And fortunately, 2 of your members were there last night. Your chair and Mr. Perez were there to field any questions. And I think it's very important that when things come up before the city council that y'all be there, because they don't really understand what you do or who you are. And what happened last night, I just want to congratulate you on finally getting to be in charge of Tree City USA. It is now in your job description, and I do hope that we can go to town with it. Go, TEC, go.
Thank you. Yeah, we became relevant last night somewhat. Anybody else? Stell?
Hello, Stell Bailey, Port St. John, Florida. At the recent City Council meeting on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024, we had a council member who advocated for taxpayers to hire a public information officer. She emphasized the need to address the city's negative image regarding water quality, particularly in the light of a recent settlement involving a child who was paralyzed after swimming in the lagoon following a significant sewage spill in 2020-2021. Numerous residents voiced their concerns during that 7.2 million gallon sewage spill, including members of this board, urging the council to put up warning signs, but their requests were ignored. It's no surprise people are hesitant to raise their voices about environmental problems in this city and reach out to their representatives. Instead of using those funds to live stream this Titusville Environmental Commission meeting, they prefer to spend tax money on hiring someone to promote their image, making them look good, instead of just doing what is right. If they were seeking a public information officer to enhance education about the environment and inform citizens, that would be one matter. For years, residents have urged the council to live stream these meetings. By the way, they're not posted which ones are live streamed on the website. We don't know which ones are live streams, which ones aren't. But their pleas often go ignored, with only a few meetings being broadcast. An audio technician is already managing the sound for the meetings that aren't streamed, so adding video really wouldn't be a challenge. The City Council's proposal to promote propaganda is disheartening, as it detracts from the TEC Board's opportunity to engage with the community on water and environmental matters and to suggest meaningful projects rather than just spending taxpayer money to justify past mistakes. I believe this proposal will only further harm the city's image, similar to the decisions to spend $165,000 to sue the citizens, failing to quickly post signs and send notices after sewage spills, suggesting planting of fake plants, having a survey that showed only 1% of the community trust the drinking water, trying to convince community that they weren't seeing or smelling pollution under $1 million walkway, and now prolonging the situation for this poor family of a paralyzed child by downplaying their struggles. In what way does investing in appearances truly benefit the residents of Titusville? Could this be seen as a tactic to aid candidates in their re-election efforts? Instead of attempting to alter the narrative, the council should concentrate on enhancing this board right here, which serves as an outstanding educational resource. It is rich with presentations and valuable information and features experts and community members who are dedicated to clean water. This proposal could come up this coming Thursday during the city's budget hearing on September 12th, 2024. I urge this board, members in this room, anybody in the community to question whether this is a wise use of taxpayer funds in an election year. Instead, suggest a more effective solution that benefits the community by putting those funds to live stream every single one of these meetings and support real environmental projects rather than merely maintaining appearances. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak under petitions and requests? Okay, we have no old business, so we're going to move on to new business. I just want to say that the report that you guys did, I know you worked hard on it. It's outstanding. I think it's really, really good. And I like how you made it readable for people like me. You know, it's easy to read. It's easy to understand. I do have some comments about the grid where you show all the different, I think it's the recommendations. We'll talk about that. But I think you did a wonderful job, and you worked really hard, and a lot of people from the community got involved, and I'm very, very proud of the product. So I guess it's up to y'all to tell us about it. Tell the TV audience, all two of them, about it.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Chris Darty, the project manager with Inspire Placemaking Collective. Thank you for having us back to take you through the final report, or the draft of the final report. I have with me this evening Dr. Jay Exum. He is with Exum and Associates. He's, as you all know, part of the team and participated in all the public engagement and helped with preparing the report, as well as Gabby Castro. She was our deputy project manager on this and helped us and was in every one of those meetings along the way. So do I have the presentation? Is it behind me? Oh, okay. Here we go. Excellent. Okay, so tonight I'm just going to take you through the whole project and tell you how we got here after going through all the public engagement and what you're going to find in the report and how we organize the report. As you know, the purpose of this project was to evaluate the concerns and the goals of the community based on the natural resources. So we had the Titusville Tomorrow Comprehensive Plan update. We kind of had to pull back a little bit on that when we went through that process, the city did. And so they wanted to make a concerted effort to go through this process in a much bigger scale, which is what our charge was. So what you find in the report are recommended strategies based on that community engagement that we went through over the last several months. This is the timeline. We kicked this off in March. We had interview sessions. We had our open house in May. We had our TEC workshop. We had some really good attendance. You know, we didn't have a tremendous response, you know, from any one given engagement, but I think the sum of the total was really high quality involvement. And then, of course, we're here today and at the final report presentation to give you an idea of where everything's where it's at and where we're headed, because this is kind of the beginning, really, of what to do next. Okay, we had our project website. That's where the folks could participate in the online survey. We had the idea wall where folks could share ideas without, you know, the constraints of a survey. We also provided the timeline of events and then provided updates on when we were going to hold the open house and the workshops and so forth. And that is the website's still active, but the survey is closed. Is the idea wall closed as well?
I'm not sure. That might still be open.
Okay, but the survey is closed because we have to at some point kind of put it into it so that we can provide the results to the community. And so we did. We had 83 responses to the survey, not as high as we would want, but we'll take all the input that we can get. So what did we find out? And these are just kind of snippets that you'll see in the report. So we asked folks, do you think the city does enough to sufficiently protect natural resources? And as you can see there, overwhelmingly, no was the response. And then we kind of asked the follow-up. So what are those priorities then if that you would like to see the city improve upon? So the sewage spills, as we heard this evening, that was one of the top responses. Clear cutting of development, and then the water quality of the Indian River Lagoon. The top initiatives that folks would like to see the city prioritize: number one, conservation land and wildlife habitat acquisition, improving treatment and disposal of wastewater effluent, wetland protection, number 4, tree preservation or tree protection, and then number 5, low impact development methods, and that's related to stormwater management. When we asked folks about whether or not they felt like the city should provide for more stringent wetland protections over and above what the water management district requires, overwhelmingly, the respondents said yes. So what's that, almost 68%. We asked folks to tell us what projects. So if we were to, you know, give them a pile of money, how much should we then prioritize in terms of funding in the next 10 to 20 years, overwhelmingly, the number one response were projects related to improving the water quality of the Indian River Lagoon. So that was number one. Number two, again, these kind of correlate to the prior questions, again, kind of confirming what that prior question asked. Wildlife conservation, wetlands protection, tree canopy, what else here? And I can't see the last two there, conservation and land acquisition and floodplain protection. Okay, so where did this lead us? It led us to several categories kind of as we started to learn more and more about what the community was looking for in terms of protection of natural resources. The first one was water quality in Indian River Lagoon. So if you joined us for the open house, you'll notice that we synthesized this information into these categories that we then asked folks to tell us what kinds of strategies that we should evaluate for the recommendations in this report. And so that we were asking the community to help us build this plan, because this plan is for the community. We're responding to the community's needs. Land acquisition and conservation, tree canopy and tree preservation, wetlands and floodplain regulations, and then finally aging infrastructure. So those were the top 5 synthesized categories based on what we heard through the public engagement process. And all of this should be kind of follow along with what you all saw during our workshops and our open houses. Okay, so I'm not going to go into each one of these strategies because they kind of repeat if you follow along with the recommendations, but these are a list of what we talked about during the open house with respect to water quality in Indian River Lagoon. Again, being very transparent about how we get to the final outcome of the report. So these are the topics we discussed during the workshop related to tree canopy and preservation. Again, we're going to talk a little bit more about these topics when we get to the recommendations. Aging infrastructure, land acquisition and conservation, and then wetland and floodplain regulation. Again, just to give you an idea of what came up during those public engagement exercises. Okay, so what does the report look like? It's organized into 4 main sections. Of course, the executive summary. We have the summary of public engagement, which I essentially just gave you that full summary. And then the topics and the findings, so those 5 synthesized categories, and then the recommendations. The recommendations are the big table that's organized by the strategies to consider, what the implementation may look like for implementing that strategy, future considerations, and that may be related to what types of resources the city may need to investigate or employ as part of that strategy. So in other words, maybe it's hiring more folks or hiring the right kind of folks to, let's say, implement additional wetlands outside of what, or wetland regulations, outside of what the district requires. Comprehensive plan policies this strategy may impact, and then how that strategy correlates with the sustainability action plan and whether or not we think that the action plan should be updated to incorporate some of those strategies. Okay, so again, this is organized by those topic areas that we talked about. The first being advancing the Indian River Lagoon stormwater quality and quantity improvements. So what does that mean? We want to continue to prioritize funding and seeking grant funding for implementing those projects. We've got projects that we've gotten funding from Sorrel, continue to push that. Also, we want more funding for those projects. And how do we, continue to push the sales tax if we can? We know it's coming up, it's going to sunset here soon. can we renew that and have another slate of projects through that funding apparatus? And then examining the feasibility of establishing additional stormwater parks. We know that stormwater capacity is an issue, not just the quality, but also, from a flooding standpoint. And we're going to need that. I mean, we've got some, issues we're going to have to deal with resiliency and sea level rise. And so these things all kind of work hand in hand with each other. And then prioritizing funding for shoreline restoration. We talked about city-owned property along the river and maybe reestablishing some of the aquatic species and so forth, to help kind of shore up the shoreline. And then continue to implement and promote the certification program with respect to fertilizing lawns. Okay, the next section, and these are all color-coded, so the first one's blue, and the next one's green, kind of follows along with those topic areas, but this is preparing plans to address the city's aging infrastructure. Again, one of those really high prioritized issues that we heard from the community. These are just highlights, not meant to go through everyone, but if we want to sit down and talk about any one of these topics, we're happy to discuss and edit any of these. This is, again, a draft for your review, and happy for your feedback and input. Conduct testing and evaluate the water quality degradation. The study should include an assessment of the magnitude of the impact and recommendations for remediation. Conduct a study to locate, assess, and identify repairs to all existing wastewater lines, particularly near surface waters. Establish a priority list of wastewater line repairs and replacement. And then when those lines do break, prioritizing emergency communications. Again, this kind of goes back to what we heard this evening already. Above and beyond what may be the standard protocol, I think, is what we talked about here. Aggressively seek funding opportunities for IRL projects. Again, we talked about the sales tax, encouraging the county to hopefully reissue that. We want to promote that, because once those funds dry up, it's going to be difficult to fund the list of recommendations we have in this plan, quite frankly. Continue to pursue grants. We already do that here at the city, but there are also opportunities for partnerships. Not just partnerships with your regular agencies that we work with, at the regional level or the district, but even the Cape and others that we see value in, coming together, because we have a shared resource, right? It's the Indian River Lagoon, and we really need to come together to make this, something that not a burden that only Titusville is shouldering, which you're not, but, to continue to share that burden. Develop a land acquisition program with a dedicated funding source. That sounds real easy. It rolls off the tongue, but that's tricky, right? Again, partnerships and grants are a really good way to continue to push the envelope there. Now, again, kind of like the projects for the lagoon, land acquisition comes with a pretty high price tag. Land is not cheap, and it's certainly not any cheaper now than it ever was. So, again, funding is going to be really critical here. Evaluating opportunities for that dedicated funding source, whether it's assessments, impact fees, stormwater utility fees, sales tax, you name it. I mean, there's a number of things that we can talk about. We do recognize that there was looking at a referendum, right, for purchasing lands. And so, yes, we need to continue to think about opportunities down the road. And then prioritize the acquisition of lands identified as areas of critical concern. That came up, that was a very specific item that came up with respect to the recharge lands and those being developed on. So if that is the case, the city is actively seeking opportunities to maybe purchase those lands so that those are preserved rather than developed. If those, indeed, they're the high recharge areas of the community, we want to protect that. Take that into your own hands, and that is the strategy to do that. Because again, those folks have entitlements and protecting property rights when they come in and they have those development, maybe not development approvals then, but they have those entitlements in place. So we have to respect the property rights. And then update the tree preservation ordinance. I know that has been a topic that you've addressed already, but there are opportunities to clarify and strengthen the tree preservation ordinance according to what we heard from the community. So again, I think it's a good practice to evaluate it as a board every 5 years. Look at the tree preservation ordinance. Are there practices that maybe the city can employ that maybe are new, innovative things that we can consider? And maybe it's something like making it a little bit easier for staff to implement, but also providing for additional protections of the tree canopy. And then considering the update of the ordinance and to retain the sub-canopy of the vegetation here in the community. And again, we talked about Tree City USA a little bit ago, all very important as part of the tree preservation in the city. And then evaluate the effectiveness of the fines levied as a result of violations. Are they not, stiff enough to, keep people from violating the ordinance? Okay, update the landscaping ordinance. These kind of go hand in hand with the tree preservation activities, but establish and pursue the funding for an urban forestry plan. That's something that's already in the works, so that's good. We want to make sure we continue to do that and encourage the city to continue to promote that. Amend the land development regulations to require all planting in new developments to be identified as Florida friendly. That's not required today. We want to make sure we do that. Evaluate the LDRs to determine if all uses are achieving the goals of the urban forestry plan. So in other words, if there are specific uses, maybe it's multifamily residential that don't have the same landscaping requirements as maybe commercial development. Why is that? We want to make sure that it's equally lifting up the urban forestry plan across the board so that you have a cohesive tree canopy throughout the city. Okay, develop or amend existing wetland policies. So here we've got some very specific items came directly from TEC members as well as the public. Having the city evaluate the LDRs to identify opportunities to clarify or strengthen the city's wetland regulations. That may include expanding the buffers or providing for no net loss of wetlands, within the city, or again, making it very difficult for wetlands to be impacted in the city. I did mention that the state legislature has looked at, preempting local governments from, this has come back, time and time again. So just, we'll keep an eye on that. But if we do, in fact, want to create, stricter wetland regulations, that the time is coming pretty soon. So we probably should do that very soon. If we were looking at a time frame for these, implement a 1.8% maximum wetland impact for developments. This is something that my colleague had something to do with several years ago here in Brevard County, that maybe we look at doing that for this citywide. Evaluate wetlands for preservation and pursue funding to create a plan to prioritize the purchase of wetlands and funding the maintenance as well. And then clarify the intent of the 5-acre rule in the comprehensive plan. That is something that I think, one of our very first discussions with city staff that came up. And so sounds like there's a loophole in the policy that we need to make sure we clarify that 5-acre wetland is, connected back to a larger system, that's, really not up for grabs, so to speak, and can be impacted. Okay, these are the last three here. The green one here is increasing public education and outreach through the city. The city is doing a lot of things that we found out about, through this process with respect to, environmental protection, and I think the community needs to know that. I think even as simple as some of the other departments, outside of planning, can provide additional information to the TEC members and then out to the rest of the public so that they understand what types of things and programs that are going on here at the city. Because a lot of things that we've talked about tonight, the city is engaging in a lot of these things, but they may not be communicating back. So communication is big. Assessing the impact fees, talked about that a little bit. Making sure that we're looking at the impact fees on a continual basis to make sure, one, the fees are covering the costs, right, of the impacts of development, and that we are establishing fees for the right things. So I know there's some communities that looked at doing impact fees for conservation lands. So that's something to think about. And creating a green space master plan. So this is really a great tool to, when you start to look at development and they're setting aside open space, how does that space then connect back to the greater green space plan and how those things connect throughout the community? That also provides opportunities for passive recreation, as well as the saving and preserving a connected system, and could help with flood mitigation as well. I think we talked about it a little. And with that is a summary of the recommendations of the report, and we're happy to open it up for discussion.
Y'all want to hear cards first, or you want to discuss first? Cards first, Lori.
Quai St. Ange.
Quai St. Ange, Maryland Avenue, Titusville Tree Team. I had something prepared to say, but I'm going to vary it a little up, if you don't mind. As environmental advocates, many tree team members appreciated the opportunity to voice our concerns for natural resources through this community engagement. So thank you very much for giving us that opportunity. I believe the intent of this is wonderful. But having struggled for the last 3 years to do something that is not even remotely thorny, the planting of trees and the preservation of trees, these hundreds of recommendations, each one is monumental for our city to even think about considering. Our council doesn't even want to consider these things, and I don't know how to get them to consider it. I'm hoping you guys will stick around and actually help us convince them that these things need to be done, not just provide us with these recommendations that are basically what we've been telling them all along. We need some help to do this because they just want to drag their feet continually. It's not just a matter of budget. It's just, and I don't want to go into it. I just am so intent that I want this to move forward and these recommendations to move forward. I don't want to nix it by just saying it can't be done, because if somebody would have told me that I couldn't get a tree ordinance passed, I would have taken offense to that, because by golly, we did. It's not good enough. We just now are standing in front of council and begging for it to be extended to multifamily when it's so obvious that we intended it to go out to all residential, and it's discriminatory just to provide it for single family. I mean, we just have to continue to press and urge something as simple as just plant trees and preserve trees when it's so obvious that you must keep trees because it's getting hotter and hotter and they reduce stormwater. It's just so obvious. Well, some of these things are kind of nitty gritty, getting down into the weeds here that we need to do costs lots of money, far more than planting trees. So I just want to ask you, how do we make this happen? How do we make even a small percentage of these things happen that you're recommending? You have 10 charts with about 10 recommendations for each chart. I spent 3 hours. I just made it through 2 charts. And then I said, well, maybe you should just focus on the ones about trees and landscaping, because that's where in your expertise lies. So I jumped over to and then I just kept finding all these little misleading statements. For instance, we are not in support of Florida-friendly landscaping. We certainly don't want to update the comp plan and code to require Florida-friendly landscaping only. We're trying to remove the Florida-friendly landscaping from our ordinance, and we've been successful so far. So I just don't, I think that's some sort of error. I'm going to give you some grace on that. But then as far as the Tree City, we've been just pushing as hard to try to get the city to implement the standards of Tree City when we've been a Tree City for 23 years, and yet they just haven't been willing to do so. And yet you're saying here that the city has leveraged their participation in the program to increase the number of trees throughout the city. In the 23 years that we've been Tree City USA, the city has allowed hundreds and hundreds of acres of trees to be removed and didn't plant 1 tree last year, despite the Tree City's requirements. Over and over again, the community budget that they are required to present says no trees planted, no trees planted, no trees planted. Why? When we have the lagoon that provides us $7.5 billion annually, begging trees to absorb the stormwater, and the tree team gets our elderly people to come out and plant trees. We planted 165 trees free of charge to the county, to the city, since 2021. And we continue to maintain them. So I really hope that this will be an successful initiative to finally get around to changing and revising the comp plan in regards to the natural resource. I really want it to work, because we've been working hard. We have people being paralyzed from paddleboarding, and people's feet have to be amputated because they waded in the water with a cut on their foot. And yet people swimming in there, they don't know better. So I wish you well. I will participate to the extent that I possibly can to try to make this go forward. But our mayor coined a phrase, paralysis of analysis, and I fear that that's what's going to come here when we have such a lengthy report with so many, many recommendations. I just didn't feel like it was prioritized or summarized sufficiently. Maybe 1 recommendation per chart would have been better, helpful, but maybe I'm all wrong. I just want to be wrong. I want to be wrong, and I want to see this succeed. So please, whatever we can do to make it move forward and succeed, please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. St. Ange. Next.
Jeff Greenberg.
Wow, that was passion. And this is a passionate concept, and I come before passionate people. I've talked to you guys before, and I've talked to our city council before. And what we're getting here is a new world of vision. It's like going into a poor kid in a candy store and looking at all these bright, wonderful ideas that are there, and then looking back at reality of being that poor kid back out on the street again, too. I recognize that 6 of you are advisory people, wonderful people, but you don't have any ultimate decision-making power, and that is shown very obviously in the city of Titusville. But a new world is coming, and we can be very hopeful that this won't stay the same. And we now have some new guidelines, and I agree. I mean, it's so comprehensive that it's possible that a lot of things we won't get to. But some of those, and I want to speak just for a couple of those, 2 things I think that are extremely important, and you recognize that I have been involved in the a movement of citizens and volunteers to do stormwater testing. This, in spite of our city council, is still alive. It's mostly within the county and with others. We have gained a tremendous number of allies at universities and colleges, high schools, and others. This will move on. This will not be stonewalled by any kind of political will eventually. It's going to happen, and we're going to do it legally. I wasn't there when the city council discussed proposal for doing this, and then probably a good thing too, because I hear it was pretty harsh. Things were said that they should have been ashamed of. But anyway, beyond that, testing of stormwater is extremely important. Our friend Bill Klein, who's not here tonight, is extremely passionate about that. Isn't it amazing, all these old people that are so passionate about these kinds of things? Before we die, we would really like to see some improvements and like to see some good things done. The other side of this, too, is, and I owe a lot of this to Laura Lee's influence, I think, is this whole concept of land acquisition. We're going to lose all these incredible natural lands within Titusville and nearby if we don't do something. It's very, very obvious that when you rubber stamp what developers want to do, including filling in wetlands and doing other things too, there are places you should not build. I am an environmental scientist. I'm a geologist. I've been doing this stuff professionally for 50 years. And I can tell you there's places you should not build. We have plenty of evidence from the engineering, from all the other, all the situations dealing with things like flooding, instability of structures. You talk to the science. And at some point, I'm looking forward to science being respected in the city of Titusville. So far, it hasn't been. I think it can be. I really, really think it can be. And I'm glad he's taking notes about this over there, too, because I think that needs to be conveyed to our city council. Because I really feel that there are things that can really help. And there's a lot of us, again, that are not official. We don't work for the city. We don't work for anybody. We're not making any money. We're volunteers, these people you see here. And they're passionate. This is their community. They love it. They love clean water. They love a good quality of life for lots of people. They love intelligent, responsible development, which is inevitable. But we do not like a lot of the things that we have seen. We do not like living in a community where we know that one poor guy has become paralyzed and people can't go swimming in the water. I think some things are changing already. I think I see optimism with the concept of going from septic to sewer, and that's a big deal, and the city's been involved in that, and there's credit for that, and I applaud all of it. But boy, so much more needs to be done. And especially, we've got these big elephants in the living room. One of them is called the space industry, and the other one is the cruise industry. And the effect that they're going to have on our immediate waterways right outside of our town here in Titusville, and the quality of life and air and water and traffic and everything else is something we're going to have to deal with. And I'll tell you, science and volunteers and you guys, I really wish you guys had votes that mattered. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Greenberg. Next.
Mary Spar.
Mary Spar, Coco. Can I first ask you, I sent an email to you actually Monday. Do you have that? Can you access, you can access it? Did you get the email as well? Okay. Okay, good. Yes. All right, so let me say, first of all, I want to see this happen. I really want to see the comprehensive plan updated, and I believe that the purpose of all this public input public engagement was to lay the groundwork for the comp plan update. So with that in mind, I really took a look at the report, and I've got to really compliment Inspire Placemaking on the outreach to the citizens. It was just excellent. And I know, based on a comparison with something else that's going on in this particular county, that you really did a great job. And all the information about the input from the public was very well presented. My problem is the recommendations. I just think it's too much for people to digest at once. I mean, we got this chart, which you all probably have, of the recommendations. And I'm just afraid that what we're going to run into is stalling. I mean, how long is it going to take? I've been around for a while, and trying to be an environmental advocate, and I have seen a lot of stalling. So the best way to avoid stalling is to get a reasonable number of things that the local government, decision makers have to keep in mind. It's got to look like they can handle it. So that's why I suggest that I hope, actually, that Inspire Placemaking would consider a little reorganization to their recommendations section. And I looked through the recommendations, and you'll see that I sent you like a list. There's some that they can implement right now. There's some that require an ordinance update. And then there are 4 that need comp plan changes. So amazing, I mean, really, with the implementation, you might think that, they might need a comp plan change to do some of this, but really the Public Works Department can take care of the infrastructure and finding the opportunities for, funding of the Indian River Lagoon project and the public education and the assessment fees. And amazingly, there is a policy that they're supposed to have created a green space master plan in the comprehensive plan. I found that. So if they could just separate these out so, City Council could just kind of put those to the back of their mind. And then the ordinance update, as you know, you made some recommendations, and these came to City Council yesterday and are undergoing advisability. Now, with regard to the comp plan, I think you really do need something in the comp plan about a stormwater park system. And so that's one change that could be made to the comp plan. And then as far as the land acquisition program, that kind of goes along with it. That would be another change to the comp plan. And, the suggestions were made that it could be a stormwater park system, or it could be purchases of some of the area of critical concern for the water supply. And then with regard to the trees, we have, a section in the conservation element. And you could add a little more language to that to require the urban forestry program and active participation in Tree City USA. Now, the wetlands are my area of concern, and you do need some comp plan changes. Do you mind if I finish?
Yeah, you guys okay if Mary finishes?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, what we really need, and I think we've talked about this at TEC before, is it's not always clear to applicants for development how these wetlands policies are going to work, because you have some policies which are in the future land use element, and then you have some more policies that are in the conservation element. Now, the ones in the future land use element had, I'd say, a major update in 2010. It was okayed by the Department of Community Affairs at the state level, but the conservation element policies, the state said they were not in compliance. And so the city had to go back to some older policies to get past this hurdle with the state. What this means is there's a mismatch between the future land use element and the conservation element. And we have the policies there in the comprehensive plan to work with. We don't need, in my opinion, any stricter permitting rules, because we're not supposed to be in the permitting business anyway. We're supposed to be in the land use planning business. What we need is a clarification. So I'm going to suggest, and I hope they'll think about it, that they say, gosh, I should have brought my stuff. You have some language that we're supposed to clarify the existing wetlands policies and maybe add some that are stronger than the state, something like that. Well, I suggest you change that wording. I think we've got everything we need to clarify the existing wetlands policies in the comprehensive plan and remove inconsistencies. What happens is you say you're going to do something stronger than the state. I mean, in another city in this county recently, we've had the development community come out of the woodwork for an update to the land development code. And you don't want to set off alarm bells. We've already seen some sort of these fights. And what the city should be in is the business of is land use planning. And there's some people that don't understand the difference between planning for, the big picture of what lands you want to have developed, if they're wetlands, and the permitting job that the St. John's does. You don't want to get in the St. John's hair. You just want to do the land use planning, and the way Titusville does this is that if a wetland is 5 acres or greater in size, it has a conservation land use, and you have limited uses. What happens is that these limited uses need to be clarified a bit more. And so I would suggest that that happened, but that's just a clarification. And then their last suggestion, they got this piece of paper, but this was about conservation easements. Unfortunately, something in perpetuity that you might think, like a conservation easement, might not be so permanent. And there's a loophole in the future land use element, which I think, the situation has changed, and now these conservation easements are not so permanent, so you need to get rid of the loophole. And then they have made a suggestion that in a couple cases that perhaps Brevard County could work with the city. When you consider that the county language in their conservation element wetlands section is available, and that most of the people that worked on this language are no longer with the county, I would suggest that the city of Titusville do that themselves. Or, if they want to use these consultants, fine. But when you start trying to get another local government involved, that just takes more time. And we really need to get it done. And another point is that Titusville's wetlands language differs in important respect from the county's. The county addresses by percentage how much wetland acreage you can impact. The Titusville's addresses how much of what's to be done with the conservation land use for the wetlands 5 acres and greater. They don't, Titusville basically has very little restrictions on smaller wetlands. So that's what I got to say. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. Sorry for taking so long.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. And I'm sure that we'll have more questions. Are there any more cards, Lori?
No more cards.
No more cards. Okay. I'll open it up for discussion, guys.
Okay. I have a question.
All right.
So the expectation tonight is to approve or not the product that is upon us?
Yeah, the expectation and the hope is that we approve it. And we can make suggestions. And I see that they've been taking notes during the speakers, and they'll take notes, and, I have a few, I have a few things I have questions about, but now is the time to ask questions and figure out what would make this even better than it already is, but send it on tonight.
Okay.
Ms. Thompson? Yes. I just want to add on to here. I don't think this commission should be concerned about how overwhelming a lot of this might seem as far as recommendations. I would ask you to maybe look at this as more of a long-term blueprint. This could be a long-term strategy that if you make a recommendation for this to go before City Council, and if they approve this, this is something that the TC could use long-term in its strategy and its planning and its recommendations to City Council over time. Obviously, all of these items you see in here can't be accomplished at one time. That's not going to happen. I can tell you that right now, because each one of them has different needs for resources and whatnot. So as you prioritize your activities each year, you could refer back to this plan, this document, say what we want to work on in this particular year as a part of a recommendation we want to give to City Council. Some of them can be done together. Some probably need to be worked on individually. So I just want to lay that out for you so you understand how this this can be utilized in the future.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was very helpful. Member Perez?
Yeah, thank you, Brad. I think that helps a lot because, I'm thinking in terms of exactly what you were talking about. I think it's a wonderful tool, okay? And yes, it's overwhelming in the sense that we touched on everything. And we've been trying to do many of these things for years and years and years and years, decades in some cases. So yeah, it would be overwhelming. That's not surprising. But yeah, it is frustrating and somewhat anxiety-provoking for some of us, that are maybe worn out. But thank you, wonderful job. And I think with Brad's guidance that he just, threw out there, which was very timely, I think it provides us with a construct of how to move forward with this. We need to prioritize the things that we feel are most important and achievable and work with that and continue to sort of chisel at it, I guess, barring any other good thoughts. I find that acceptable.
Thank you. Member Tucker?
I just want to thank you for your effort, and I consider this a comprehensive bullet list to be fleshed out. You would be here next year working on it if you included all the details needed. So I'm just encouraged that we have, like Brad says, a blueprint.
ahead.
It's pretty good. One thing was, you have the comprehensive plan and the other plan in there. So I guess there's all kinds of, like the tree ordinance isn't in there, but I'm assuming that's part of one of the other noted in something else, that there's so many rules and standards out there that you pick those guys as overbearing and plans to move forward. But what I was looking at, the thing that was coming up in our discussion is how much is this being done? I mean, we have dreams and wants, and like the tree plan is part of, the tree ordinance that we got is part of that, but I don't see a measure that says one of these items that our dream or plan is to be here and we're like 30% there. Is that something that should be put in here that say that your little items, 1 to 5 or 1 to 15 or whatever they were, should there be a number there that says we're 20% towards that or 30% towards that? Should that be part of this, or is that beyond what you're considering?
That's interesting you mentioned that, because that's kind of the evolution of planning. We're kind of moving towards this very transparent dashboard type evaluation of the plans, and that wasn't part of our task. It would be kind of difficult to maybe measure and evaluate each one of these right now, but that could be part of what you have that's public facing, is a dashboard of these tasks, and like you said, a progress bar. We're 10% of the way here, and maybe action items associated with your dashboard. And so that's a really good comment, because again.
So you can add a place where we can take this document and mark off that we're moving forward in this percentage direction inside this, or is it something you wouldn't add to this because that wasn't part of your original plan? Or do we have to make something new to measure our moving forward on this? Is that something we have to do and make our own document?
Right, that would be another facet of this plan. This is not part of what we're tasked to do, but doing something like that is a nice way to show how we're getting there.
That is something the TEC could work on and have and utilize. Another board, the Historic Preservation Board, for example, has a historic preservation plan. They got city council to approve several years ago. They refer back to it every year to kind of prioritize what they want to do for the year. So they look at it to see what we've achieved and what they haven't achieved. And they don't go as far as creating a dashboard with percent complete or not, but they do go back to it and refer. So if that's the level of detail that the commission wants, that's something that you can certainly work on and utilize and refer back to. But no, that wasn't part of the original task of this particular project.
So, yeah, and that, I think that's a great idea, Bill. And if you look at the Save Our Indian River Lagoon website, the county's half-penny sales tax website, they have thermometers, and they have, it shows the level of completion of the number of projects, that have been completed, the number of projects that are in process, the number that are just in planning. I don't think we need that right now. A lot of what's in these recommendations is already being implemented and worked on, and like you said, some of them are 30% done. I think what we need to do is give Jay and Chris whatever thoughts we want on what needs to be added or changed in the document tonight, and then we use this, like Brad said, as a roadmap, and we got to pick something that is of the highest priority. Well, it's certainly straightening out the complicated language that we have in the comp plan regarding wetlands and the loopholes that the developers are using right now, to fill in wetlands and get away. I have a question. You talked about, and you gave a lot of emphasis to strengthening our wetland, requirements or policies or whatever beyond what is required for the state. Is that even legal, or does that lay the city open to a Burt Harris lawsuit?
I believe it is legal. I'm, of course, not an attorney, but there are communities right now. In fact, Orange County, I believe, is looking at, dare I say, 100-foot upland buffer? Yes, 100-foot. Right now, they're considering that. So, yeah, so there are communities that are including significant changes to their wetland policies. I know, I think Lake County has is it a 75-foot buffer in some instances, and 50-foot, that's already in the books today. So.
Thank you.
I could just add to that. Just my understanding is that those kind of restrictions, though, do have to get approval and review by FDEP if a local jurisdiction wants to do something that's a little above and beyond. And there has to be some nexus for that regulation. There has to be some study to justify that new regulation. So if that's something the city council wants to go forward with, that's something we would have to do to help justify that.
And just one point about some of those, because there's those same buffers or, extremely large buffers occur in the Wekiva River Basin, the Tomoka River Basin. And there was a study to show, excuse me, how significant and unique the resource was and why it needed this larger buffer. So I don't know that we could do that carte blanche for every wetland system in the city. I also appreciated Mary's comments about the fact that perhaps we can accomplish that same objective by focusing on making the comprehensive plan consistent, and we focus on protecting the land use and conservation status of wetland systems. And then when we do that, perhaps that also changes the need to prioritize wetland acquisition. So if they are fully protected, they don't need to be a part of the land acquisition strategy. So some of these tools and recommendations, I think, may have some synergy.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, if we set out on a quest of trying to enact stronger regulations than what the state requires. It would be like throwing a big smoke bomb in a hornet's nest, the reaction that it might elicit. I think we'd be better off to just work on what we have and listen to Mary. I don't see any other lights, so I'm just gonna keep on going here. On the cover of it, would it be possible to use a picture of the Max Brewer Bridge instead of the Wabasso Causeway?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do we have a high-quality image?
Oh, Titusville has all kinds of pretty pictures of the bridge.
We would love to.
Okay,
Absolutely.
all right. And then the smaller pictures that are inside, like the ones that you use for the trees over the road and land acquisition and wetlands, and the picture of the Indian River. We can come up with some local Titusville pictures for those same categories if you'd be interested.
Absolutely.
I have tons of pictures. I
If
can
you
send.
have photographs, please share those.
Okay.
We'd love to include
Yeah, because
those.
I want to personalize it so that and people look at it and say, oh, well, that's Mosquito Lagoon. Yeah, that's Old Dixie Highway. So, we'll get you those pictures.
Great.
Okay,
Amazing you said that, because I was looking at the picture thinking that it should be at the same place, but looking across the wetlands and seeing Titusville at the end. Because right now, see, if you just show the bridge, what I like to see is the wetlands, the bridge, and the city, so that the wetlands picks out from you and way off in the distance is the city, so that you know it's Titusville with the bridge, but you emphasize most of it being wetlands. You know, not looking just at the bridge, because the bridge is cool, but to look at the wetlands moving into the bridge in a city. If that picture can, I don't know if anybody has a picture like that, but
we'd have to look around and see. But if we don't, then just a picture of the bridge, maybe with the Pier 220 under it and people fishing on.
is that the railroad bridge?
No, that is the Wabasso Causeway. So, let's see. On page 5, question 2, it talks about nitrogen and phosphorus, but I think you need the word reduction after nitrogen and phosphorus, just a little picky thing. On page 6, question 6, you have, you talk about the tree team, comma, and then it says tree club and grove. What is tree club and grove? It's on page 6. Question 6. And you're listing the potential possible organizations that could act as volunteer organizations to help us do stuff. Let me find it.
Item 6. On that page. Page 6, item 6. That came from our,
Could have been something that somebody had on one of the flip charts or something.
that was from TEC interviews theoretically.
Yeah, that was from the interview session. So the tree club, I believe, is maybe that's what was.
They were from notes, so it might have, with people taking notes and
Okay,
over time, we can remove it too. It's not a.
yeah, I would take that out.
Sure.
Excuse me, maybe they mean the tree farm.
What? We have a tree farm?
Yes, we have a tree farm.
Ah. Well, then change it to tree farm.
I don't think we have Tom's tree,
That's what they call the tree farm now.
Club? Oh, change it to the garden club.
Garden club?
Garden club.
Okay. Garden club. Got it. Sorry about that.
Garden Club and
Yeah.
And I think the Grove is probably the Grove Church, because I remember during the meeting, somebody mentioned it. Yeah, no. One of the people that were there had the idea that the Grove Church had a lot of volunteer groups doing things. So that's what I think that was.
There's other volunteer groups that I don't see mentioned in there, like Yotu was here with the Eastern Florida State College, they have an environmental group, and there's some other ones that I don't see mentioned, but maybe none of those representatives came to the meeting and put their name in, so I don't know if we should name people that weren't there, but they're influential in the town, but they weren't at the meeting. Is that something to do?
And again, this is based on the conversations that we had with you all.
Yeah.
So whatever came up during those conversations.
The individual discussions.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, I certainly don't have any experience that the Grove Church, volunteers or no volunteers, would at all be a partner.
I think we should cut it out.
I think we should cut it out too. And I think if we're going to include the garden club, I would say Titusville Garden Club Tree Farm.
Okay.
Okay. And
Got it.
Get Tree Club and Grove out of there.
So you only want to put in ones that were named, or we want to put ones that we want to be part of this?
And we could add to that. I mean, we were summarizing the interview sessions, essentially.
Is that stated in that was stated in the very beginning, right?
Mm.
Is who it was interviewed and talked to. So are we allowed to add other people that we'd like to have be part of this?
Well, there's
This is what's
potential
taken
partners.
place already.
Those interviews were done individually with you. Now you're here together, so you can discuss this and make changes to this report as you see fit. So that section on page 15 of your packet, which is page 5 of the report, those Titusville Environmental Commission interviews, if you see anything in here collectively discussing this that you would like to have changed in here, this is the time to do it right now.
So are we mentioned in there?
What? Of course. Yes, of course.
Yeah, just take a look at page 15 of your packet, you'll see.
Yeah, if you'd like us to add, a couple, that's fine.
You could change the native plant advisory to the Native Plant Society. And I don't know if Blue Origin and the KSC and Space Florida want to be mentioned in this, but they could be partners. They certainly could. It would be nice, but, and if we put in Blue Origin, do we need to add SpaceX so we don't insult one of the richest men in the world?
Sure.
Put in SpaceX.
There are many groups that could partner. We have environmental groups in our community that could partner if they were willing, but we invite them to these meetings. The Friends of the Enchanted Forest,
Right.
the Native Plant Society. I have spoken to those groups innumerable times.
Could the speaker come up
Yeah,
to the
if
podium?
you're going to speak, you
or
need
be
to come
invited
up
to the
to
podium?
the microphone. That we could fill up this page with organizations. I think we're okay with just picking out a few.
Yeah, okay. I initiated the Titusville Tree Team. Okay, my name is Kay. And as such, I'm asked to give presentations to various groups in our community who are interested in trees. So we have the Enchanted Forest down, that big eel project down in, and so they've invited me many times to speak in front of the Friends of the Enchanted Forest. They also have, in the same facility, they have the Native Plant Society. I've spoken to them a number of times. I've spoken to the garden club that meets on Sisson Street, as well as the garden club tree farm. And all of those groups might be willing, or some members of those groups might be willing to undertake projects. I've always encouraged them to come and meet with city council and voice their opinions, and occasionally some have, but not as an organization. And I could give my reasons why I think that's true, but I think if they were asked to partnership from a more official source, that they might be so inclined. So maybe that helps you out. I wasn't part of the interview, and so I don't really know what you're trying to fill in there. But I do want you to know that we do have a number of environmental groups. Those are just the ones I'm aware of. So thank you.
Yeah, because EEL, EEL is part of the Enchanted Forest, which is
Yes.
part of this thing. But EEL, I don't see, EEL, when you're talking about who our partners are, EEL would be a partner. They're in the town.
Well, the county has the EEL program. We do have people that have retired from the EEL program that work with the Titusville Tree Team. We do, and I have talked with them before. And
Yeah, I think it would be good to add the Environmentally Endangered Lands Program.
yes,
That's you.
And I from one of these meetings here, I was asked to go to, we went to the golf course where we had a meeting with the fishermen.
yes.
Who do fishing, charter fishing, and there was like 75 fishermen. I didn't know there was that many boat guys doing fishing in
goodness.
the city. And there they were, talking about saving the lagoon and saving the river because they're losing money because they can't get people to come and go fishing because
Well, yeah, we
can't get
used
fish,
to
the
have
bluefish.
fishing tournaments here, and we
so
used to,
we used to have a major fishing tournament here.
Yes.
Nationwide, and now it's gone.
And guess what? We used to have the largest bird festival, bird
Yeah.
and wildlife festival as well. And Laura Lee still has that. It's not as big as it used to be, I don't believe, because our bird population is declining so rapidly. But we still have a bird festival, bird and wildlife festival. Since I'm up here, since I really would like you to change this update landscape ordinances that states update the comp plan and code to require Florida-friendly landscaping only. We are definitely, that wording needs to be changed. We are not wanting to require Florida-friendly landscaping only. We are wanting to require native plantings. Native,
What page are you on?
it's on page 27.
Okay, thank you.
Right. We have updated our technical manual to, it used to only have 33% native plants. We've updated, and it was mostly Florida-friendly plants. And now we've changed it to 73% of the tech manual is now native plants. The TEC and the P&Z have recommended to council that that landscapers be given incentives to plant native over Florida-friendly. Florida-friendly just does not provide the benefits that native plants do for the bees and the birds. A Florida-friendly plant can be from China, from India. It just happens to grow well here and doesn't need a lot of water and irrigation. That's all a Florida-friendly plant is. My yard's full of Florida-friendly plants, but I also intersperse native plants, and so my yard's full of butterflies and birds. So I'm not totally opposed of Florida-friendly, but that's not something we want to require, only Florida-friendly. We want to encourage more and more native, which is what I'm trying to do in my yard too. So you do it on an individual level, and you do it on local level, and hopefully national.
So, Jay and Chris, it's in the top of the chart there, and you've got it right on the left-hand, in the very left-hand column, except I'd rather see native species listed before Florida-friendly.
I would eliminate Florida-friendly. We want native.
Put native species first, and or Florida-friendly, but Kay's right. In the middle column, it says to require Florida-friendly landscaping only. we want to require that they use natives, Florida natives. And if they can't use all Florida natives, they can use a few Florida friendly. But if you can doctor that up, that would
Understood.
be good.
Can we go back to page 6, please? Item 6. The question is what the problem is. Okay. I remember when we had the interview, and I struggled with that one because the way the question is worded, specific suggestions for projects or partnerships. You don't have a project listed there at all, 0. In none of your dialogue that you copied. You have potential partnerships of people throwing out names. Is that really what we want to do with that question? Because the 2 items that you're trying to get, we as a community, I think, have failed to answer it.
Keep in mind, this was
I
the
know.
interview sessions
And
with
that's
you
what
all,
I'm
right? And so we're just documenting what we
I understand.
what we
If
learned.
you're documenting, but now you're putting it as an answer.
Sure.
That's what the problem is, in my opinion. That's why we're all struggling with question 6. Okay? Because you're asking for specifics. And,
Sorry.
and I don't think you got that. I don't think we gave you that.
We can relook at our notes and see if we can add some programs or to better, formulate this
Think about
answer.
it, because we're not answering that question. We're just throwing names at it.
Sure. Yeah, we'll
None of
relook at
these
our
people
notes.
have been contacted or otherwise know that somebody mentioned them.
Since we're
And
all.
that's important, by the way.
Yeah, since we're all together and we can talk, what projects would you like to see it in now, see in it now? So
Well-
they don't have to spend time going back and looking at their notes.
Well,
Even if we look at the notes, they look at the notes, it's possible they
Okay,
may
so-
find there's no projects
Okay,
identified.
so I can share with you that we would like to see more testing done of outfalls coming out of the city of Titusville. I would like to see more testing done at the sewer plant, okay, to know what is coming out of the city and what they're looking at. I would like to know a study that tells me how volume of the water that we're putting back into the river through outfalls and piping, okay, just getting rid of
All of that should be at the FDEP website.
but it isn't. We don't do testing.
No.
The
Actually,
sewer plant doesn't get tested.
That's actually not true. They have to get tested, otherwise we'd be shut down and we'd have no sewage system. The FDEP requires testing periodically, every 2 years, but they also require that the amount of water that goes into our discharge, our environmentally sensitive areas, is recorded to the approximate gallons, thousands of gallons or whatever it is. So they're there, they are there.
Somebody is actually know the measurement.
They have to.
That we
They
have
have
14
instruments.
outfall lines with
They have-
16-inch capacity. I don't think so.
Okay, well, you know what? Take a trip down there and you'll find that they do. They have a measurement machine, they have instrumentation, it's all computerized now, that measures every single outfall. It's all computerized. Now, I worked in a wastewater treatment lab, so I know this is true. And I've seen the ones at the Osprey and on Buffalo Road, so I know they have the instrumentation, and I know they register.
Okay, the
and
sewer
they-
people
And I
may,
know they record
but
it,
not,
and I know that they have to send it every month. They have to send a report into the FDEP that tells them when they discharge, what kind of tests was done on the discharge, because every time there's a discharge, there's a slew of tests that have to be done. And then every single year, they have to do testing on what goes out.
but at the park here, they didn't even know what they had, and they prohibited testing.
That's not the outfall, that's an overflow and a spill, that's not an outfall.
Well, but an outfall, if I go to any of the one that they have, I don't think they can tell me by number 1 through number 14 in the city what is being put out.
They have officially, the outfalls are at Buffalo plant, I don't think they discharge there anymore. and at the Osprey, those are the official outfalls.
Okay,
The other ones, the broken pipes and things like that,
now
no,
broken
they don't.
pipes. This is like
The
right next to
accidental
Mr. Perez's
overflow?
house.
The
There is an
acc-
outfall line.
You mean the accidental overflows
No.
that they've had?
No,
There's a stormwater.
there's a stormwater.
That's not the same thing as
It's not the same
wastewater.
thing.
No,
Yeah.
I separated that. I said, at Osprey's, yes, I would like to see more testing and I would like to see more data. The data is not published. Nobody knows what it is. The data is not published.
For the stormwaters, you're right, but for the wastewater treatment plants, it is definitely public.
No, I'm sure it's there as a data, but it's not published. There are no other citizens that know what they're putting out. Okay, we're talking about things that we would like to do as projects, is maybe the project should be to share data. Are we doing good? Are we doing bad? Okay, what capacity do we have? And then on outfalls, what I would like to see is the testing on the outfall lines, whether it comes from Sandpoint or it comes from Santa Teresa or it comes from anywhere else. Okay, and that is not done either because we failed miserably. October of '23, September of '23, we took it to council and council refused to take measurements. This gentleman was there and I was there. Okay, and they used the words that we don't want to know.
Mr. Greenberg, you had your hand up?
Yeah, let me respond a little bit to that. I've spent 3 years now studying stormwater in this area. Again, to go back to 50-plus years as an environmental scientist and a geologist and working in all kinds of things like this. And apparently, I wasn't there when the city council rejected it. You all voted 6-0 in favor. They voted 5-0 against. And you know who I respect. All right. But anyway, I wasn't there to answer anything. I was sent a bunch of questions that I actually got from Mr. Parrish, which I sent back to them too. So they got answers to their questions, and apparently they didn't find those satisfactory. But I can tell you, Brevard County alone has at least 1,800 separate outfalls of stormwater conduits of some kind. And this all represents replumbing that was done back starting in the 1940s mostly and through the 50s. What you're talking about with the sewage plants is exactly right. Those are the official treated water outfalls. But you're talking about stormwater. And I can tell, I think some of you already know, I'd like more people to realize too that we have what's called Swirl now, which is actually an organization. We have independent funding, very small amount. We're doing a pilot study, and we're doing it with Eastern Florida State College, and we're looking particularly at chain of lakes, at properties and waters that are not under the authority of the city of Titusville, for obvious reasons, because they rejected us. They rejected us, and they made a couple comments like, well, we weren't trustworthy, and we didn't do this, we did that. These are things that are on the record now, as I'm being told, so they can't deny it. And that we would force people to go on their property to sample water. That's just totally untrue, totally untrue. And we have been continuing to work, but again, without the city of Titusville, it should be partners on this. And with this sort of a study, it seems more inevitable that someday this is going to happen anyway. And we've got very competent professionals, technical professionals, biologists, geologists, engineers, all kinds of people that are working that they never even asked me about, people that are involved. And we'll be using the local high school. Astronaut High School is highly involved, but Eastern Florida State College is going to be a prime partner in this. And we're going to start in waters that are going into the lagoon but are not under the authority of the city of Titusville, because we're not allowed to, because we might get arrested if we're caught sampling those waters. Now, if that's not outrageous, I don't know what is. And you can send that back to city council if you'd like. But anyway, the point being that there are a lot of outfalls. And one of your own members who's not here, who's enjoying his time up in Maine right now, Mike Myjack, is actually one of our tech experts. And he's helping us put together a team of people who can sample remotely, real-time measurements remotely at these outfall sites. And we're going to start with a small pilot project and then hopefully expand. We've gotten the ear, and we've talked to the head of the Natural Resources Division for the county with Virginia Barker. We've talked to many others. We've had to go around the city because the city rejected what we wanted to do. Everybody else is excited about it. Everybody else that's involved in the IRL, all my other science contacts, we're working with high school students, we're working with college students. This might be a revelation for a lot of people. I don't know, because I haven't been back again. I didn't want to go back to city council. I didn't want to confront them about what they did to our project, which again, I consider to be shameful, absolutely. There's no jurisprudence involved with being able to answer those questions in front of them as they basically made accusations. So we are getting ready right now to do what you mentioned. And it's a small project because we have very, very little funding. But we're hoping that for the future, there will be more funding available because this is the kind of thing that needs to be done much more broadly, not just Titusville. Some people say, why you do it here? Well, I'm here. and the notoriety of bad water is here, which we cannot ignore. So anyway, I don't know. If you have any other questions about this, Mike is very, very interested in looking at ways of determining how much fresh water is going into the IRL. We heard it at the city council meeting from a very, very good researcher at the University of Florida, Todd Osborne, talking about how fresh water into the IRL is the #1 toxin that's bad for all marine organisms, not just the seagrass and all that, but everything else here that has to have higher salinity. And we are pumping artificially, we're returning all that water that should be out in our wetlands, the water that should be going into the St. Johns River system, and sending it into the IRL. And that was a big mistake. It's the same mistake that was made for Lake Okeechobee. And we're seeing what happens with that, with things like red tide and cyanobacteria. Deadly things happening because human beings have done things wrong, and it's time to change. Anyway, I know I'm preaching, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so going back to what I was trying to say, I believe in question 6 of page 6, what we have is a litany of names that don't belong there because they're not specific. These are a wish list of names, and we might have given them to you. I'm not discounting that. But I do remember when I was in your interview that I brought up the issue of testing very loudly and to the point. And so as a project, I am requesting that we add the testing to item 6, question 6 on page 6, and perhaps remove some of those names that they're all well-intended, and it's a list of people that I'm sure do a lot of good work, but they're not specific to your question. Okay, and when you use the word specific, it means something. Not just my organization or their organizations and somebody else's organizations. So I'm giving you projects. That's my point.
Member Young?
I was surprised last week, I'm not sure how this fits in, but I was in my backyard doing yard work, and I hear tractors and machinery in my backyard. Behind my house, 50 years ago was a gas station, then it turned into a used car lot. It's been sitting empty for a few years, and so I went through the gate to this property that's behind my house, and these machines are there being paid by Florida Department of Vermont, DEP, and they're to put down wells. So right next door here on my property, this company is putting down 3 wells on this property to test the pollution in the water that I use in my well to water my plants and my vegetables that I eat. And this water thing flows underground from my house to the river. So you may have above ground flows, but what about the below ground flows of water to the river? So they're doing another test. So they already had 3 wells down, and they're adding another 3 wells. And I talked to them, and they gave me some web pages to go to, and I downloaded a 50-page report that I haven't finished reading yet on what they're testing in the water that I water my grass and food with. How do we put this into here, into your report? I just thought I'd throw that out, that I just was burnt by this last week.
Probably happens everywhere there is an old gas station. But, yeah, it's definitely happening at Searstown.
So I couldn't get water at your house?
Sure. I don't have a well. It would be Brevard County water up in Mims, but yeah, you can come get water at my house. I'd like to add a project, the concept of, and it goes along with Member Delgado, and that is redirect fresh water away from the Indian River Lagoon. And that could, that could cover stormwater parks. It could cover all kinds of things. Just, that would be my project I'd like to add. Anybody else? Member Perez, and then Member Tucker, and then
Second
Member
that.
Fliss.
I've had this on for a while.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'd like to second what you just said, Laura Lee, but I wanted to go back to question number 6. I do think it was kind of maybe not a very good question, okay? The intent of it, I think, got lost in the sauce. In order to just salvage something, although I don't know how meaningful it would be, just to restate the question, do you have suggestions for partnerships that could improve natural resources in or near the city? I think that it's vanilla, okay, but the way it exists right now, it is problematic, just to get beyond that point.
So what are you suggesting that we add or take out so
I
that it's no longer
suggested-
problematic?
To change the question to, do you have suggestions for partnerships that could improve natural resources in or near the city? And get rid of the rest of it.
Get rid of the word projects?
Do you have any specific, and then for projects? So do you have suggestions for partnerships that could improve natural resources? And that pretty much lists what there is there. And it's vanilla, there's nothing.
Yeah, I don't want to take out projects.
Okay, leave them in.
Member Tucker?
This is totally off the current topic, but I don't know where this fits in. I would like to see us try to find connective green space. Pocketed green space is good, but connective green space has many more benefits.
Another related, I'm sorry. Another related thought is connecting parcels of wetlands that are under 5 acres. And that's something that's come up in the past in order to protect them.
Well, that would fit in with green spaces. We'll say green spaces and wetlands. How about that? That way we got uplands and wetlands. But we have a huge opportunity here in Titusville to have a really, really nice green corridor. There's still enough left. Member Fliss?
To add to your comment, the stormwater culverts, it would be great if we had a project where we could involve corporations to replace them and maintain them.
Like the ones under I-95?
Yeah, like this.
Like those? All right, you guys have any more projects or organizations? Do you think that it's a waste of space to include Blue Origin, KSC, Space Florida? I do too. I'm trying to be realistic. And I think that that's a pie in the sky pipe dream to think that they would partner with us, to
Unless we
do
had a really
projects.
great publicist.
Yeah.
Well, somebody
I mean,
made the suggestion from this group.
Well, I think they need to be somewheres because they're adding to our pollution.
No question about that.
Maybe that's why we need them as partners.
Well, leave them in there.
Can we embarrass them into being partners?
Oh, remember Delgado, who worked out at the Space Center for all his life, said, don't name the companies.
If you name companies, you're gonna be N-1 company, because there are more companies out there than than a lot of people realize today. We just see a small number of launches from either SpaceX or ULA right now. We're gonna see Blue Origin, and there are 10 other companies out there with rockets at the pad. Do you want to mention, do you want to have a spelling bee on the acronyms? Which I can add to that after 36 years of living with we used to have a book for acronyms, by the way.
So maybe the space industry at the Cape
Space
or
industry.
something? Okay,
And NASA,
okay.
and Spaceport Florida. Those are the three main institutes that are out there. Okay, and then you cover everyone. That's great.
So NASA, Space Florida, and the commercial space industry. Any more projects to go on 6? I think, so we've got green space, rediverting freshwater, testing stormwater. That's enough. All right, let's move on from number 6. Any more ideas or suggestions?
Yes, I'm sorry, but I've read the thing, so. Is there a list that we can put together that says these are ready to implement? Is there such a list? Things that are ready to implement?
As
Did it
in
get that far?
like shovel-ready projects, so to speak?
Yes.
We don't have
I
it,
didn't want to use that.
right. We don't have that list identified yet.
I think that would be something that city staff would have to help us with.
Yeah.
Now, Mary suggested it, and Brad and I talked about it yesterday. Maybe on the right-hand side, under when we're in the recommendations column, I'm sorry, on the left-hand side, for each of the individual things that we need to know whether it would be like a comp plan change or added to the comp plan, whether it refers to the comp plan, whether it refers to the land development regulations. Let me see. Just some way to kind of help us understand where each one of these suggestions goes. So it could be, I'm trying to find it here in the notes. Just, we need help being able to figure out, we don't work with the comp plan language. And so we kind of need some guidance so that we understand where each one of these things fits in, whether it's a land development regulation or a comp plan policy or a strategy or whatever.
Absolutely, we can do that.
That would be good. That would be very helpful.
And one more thing, if you don't mind. Also, there are some things, and we have heard today, about that need ordinance change. Like the wetlands, like other items, could we couch those into that category?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and back to the wetlands, the city is about to enter into the EAR process. Again, I can't believe it's already been 5 years or ever how many. And that's the evaluation and analysis report, I think. I may not have the right words, but it's like an update to the comp plan that the city has to do every so many years. And so this is a perfect timing now to get those wetland issues resolved so that, the I don't know, which, the conservation element matches the future land use element, and the LDRs are, we need to get it all where it's matched up so that it can't, these issues with our language can't be used as a loophole for us to be continually losing these small wetlands around the city. or chunks of the big wetlands too, because part of a 100-acre wetland might have 2.5 acres on your property, but you're looking at it as it's only 2.5 acres, but in reality, it's part of a 102.5 acre piece.
Can we put that on our agenda, a future for the?
Well, I think what we would do is, after we get through beating up their work and get it to where you like it, then perhaps we would then identify what we want to tackle first, and that would be my preference. Did you guys get a copy of Mary's email? You did, okay. So I don't need to go into, under her comp plan, she's got some specific things that she's got listed there, but you've got that. You guys, did you look at the email? Okay, I don't need to go over these. They're all really good suggestions, but I don't, since they have the email and you guys have had the email, I see no reason to go over all of those.
I'm sorry, are you suggesting to make changes to the report based on the email from Mary Spar?
Yeah, so maybe we do
So
need to talk about it.
Is that what
So
the commission wants to do? I think you could do that with a head nod and kind of everybody agree, unless there's someone that disagrees with that, probably needs to state that. Or motion, however you want to do it.
All right, why don't I read them off and make sure that everybody agrees with them so that it's on the record?
I did include it in the Agenda Star app that's on, or I'm sorry, the icon that's on your desktop. So you can retrieve it from there if you don't have a hard copy or you don't have it with you.
So
If you need help finding it, please tell me.
agenda, so you click on the star that's on the left-hand, upper left-hand side? What's an agenda star? I'm sorry, I'm, huh?
You close this.
Oh, close that?
No, that, yeah.
Minimize.
Just minimize the agenda that's on your,
There's two of the stars.
I got it, okay. Is it the top one or the bottom one? Or either one?
should say just agenda. It looks like a yellow star. Click on that, you see two documents. One is the TEC agenda, and the second document is the email, or the attachment from Mary Spar. Yeah, so inspire recommendations. Open that up and you should see it. Yep.
There it is, okay. So y'all read through that and make sure that you're in agreement with all the work that Mary did. Yeah. Thank you, Brad.
Madam Chairman, I'm hoping, I don't know what may come from the commission now, but I'm assuming you're going to say something like, consider these suggestions as we edit the final report. There might be some words I would suggest changing from the way Mary approached it. I think they're all good ideas, but we may have some different verbiage or a different way of addressing it.
Okay, that's fine with me. Yes, come up to the microphone there.
Yes, I agree with Jay, because what I've done, well, first of all, these numbers here belong to, the categories that they, so you see they're not in order, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10. But in these comments, I don't want to have anything, that is critical of, the effort. I think, they've really tried and they've done a wonderful job with the outreach. So these are just kind of cleanup things. In fact, so they can kind of word them like they want. They should have some leeway. You may not want to include my little, recommendations to you about their recommendation, but just give them some leeway. Like, for example, the last one, please consider deleting 2 implementation suggestions. They could just go ahead and do that if they want. To be honest, you're looking at somebody who is responsible for 1.8%, and that's Jay. So, give them some leeway, and maybe they'll think they didn't have to engage the county or some of the other things. That's all I got to say.
One thing I was thinking, and Brad, I think this might have been what you were talking about earlier that maybe y'all discussed in a meeting. There could be a column on the far side of this that simply says something like next steps. So the implementation, I think, would go further to say, seek funding opportunities for IRL projects, assess impact fees. So there'd be something actionable in that category rather than breaking it down into implementation that doesn't have something that's actionable. And we would think about how to make actionable those things that perhaps are not comp plan or LDR changes. So just my thought. And that then can come back to y'all. And I was thinking about this, how you prioritize things. This dashboard is a great idea, but when you think about it, I think about how you prioritize management actions. Sometimes that has to do not only with what you might prioritize, the ease of accomplishment, the substance of what you're going to be accomplishment, the time frame for completion, the expense, the likelihood of partnership, whether it's a part of an ongoing effort, the current status that Commissioner Young mentioned. So all those things might be a part of a decision tree that would have you say, we're going to do this first. We're cherry picking, even though it's not the most substantive, but the most substantive is so complicated, it'll take us 6 years to accomplish. So, these next steps might help you with the decision tree about what you tackle first.
And so would you create that decision tree that we could then apply to these things as throughout the year as we're talking about it? Because we used the decision tree when I was on the Fishery Management Council, and it was extremely helpful in helping us identify.
I will tell you, for Chris and Brad, I will commit to putting these things down, sort of the first steps of a decision tree, but I know it wasn't a part of our scope. So I think some initial thoughts on that, be happy to sort of run that for the team.
And again, all these are great points, and the comments is where I would agree with Mary that perhaps, because like, for instance, number 7, the title is exactly what we've been talking about. Develop and amend existing wetland policies. So it refers to existing policies that need to be looked at again, okay, and create limitations of wetland impacts. And so that's a product.
It's a product, but it includes that dangerous language about create more limitation on wetland impacts. So I personally would like to see any reference to creating additional limitations or additional whatevers beyond the scope of what we already have. I think that's a dangerous place for us to go.
I would just, the way I would use that is take advantage of the wording and take up limitations. And we are looking for impacts on wetlands. But we do have a problem with the policies the way they are. And so therefore we need to, that's something to be looked at. And I think it takes care of the essence of what we've been trying to talk about with the wetlands. We have policy issues, and we have some other real issues, and we need to bring them together. And that is something the city, TEC, and obviously the citizens at large got to work together on that. So in your decision tree, that's how that would come together. Okay.
I see no more lights. Are you guys okay with the product? I am very happy with it. I think you guys did a wonderful job. You really did. Yes. Go ahead.
I make a motion that we incorporate Mary's words for you gentlemen to consider for the updated version of this. Is that good?
And the other, and if I may add, and other additional comments that we have talked about.
Yeah.
Well,
Because we talked about a lot of testing, we talked about a lot of policy. We talked about also a category that says, what is ready? You know,
I think there's two different things here. Right now, we're talking about including Mary's suggestions.
Correct.
Then we vote on that, and then once that's done, then we vote to approve the whole project, that includes
Second.
all of the discussion. All right, so we got a motion on the floor by Member Fliss, seconded by Member Perez, that we include the gist of Mary's suggestions in with the plan and let Jay and Chris work them in. So let me make it easier for Lori, that we approve adding Mary's thoughts to the document. Yeah, okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Or do we need a roll call on this, Lori? Let's do a roll call.
Member Young,
Yes.
Member Fliss,
Yes.
Member Delgado,
yes.
Member Tucker,
Yes.
Member Perez.
Yes.
Chairwoman Thompson.
Yes. All right, now, can I hear a motion to approve the document?
I make a motion that we approve the document with the changes that we have discussed included.
Second.
Motion by Member Fliss and seconded by Member Perez that we approve this document with the changes that we discussed. All those no. Roll call.
Member Perez,
Yes.
Member Young,
Yes.
Member Delgado,
Yes.
Member Fliss,
Yes?
Member Tucker,
Yes.
Chairwoman Thompson.
Yes. All right, it passes unanimously. So what is the next steps? Do you guys make the changes and it comes back to us, or do you make the changes and it goes to P and Z, or what happens next, Brad?
I can answer that. So based on how significant the changes are, we'll make a determination as to whether, we'll share them with you, and we'll make a determination as to whether they need to come back to you, and I could probably do the presentation to show you what's there. And if we need to get on another motion to approve the changes, we can. Otherwise, if the changes aren't so significant, we can just go ahead and bring this before City Council. I'll share it with you and see if you have any questions about it, and we'll make that determination. If it goes to City Council, obviously you'll have an opportunity to make a case for, or to come and speak on it, about it at that council meeting. I'm not sure what our timeline is. I have to look back to see, but I think we're probably going to bring this back to City Council soon, so I can't remember. I have to look at the schedule again.
our final was due to you by September 30th, so I don't know when that council next meeting was going to.
So we'll determine whether this is something we can just bring to city council on our, with city staff, or if we need to reach out to you guys, depending on the questions that we receive. If maybe we need to have someone come and work with you to maybe do another task to come and present it to city council for us.
All right.
We'll make that determination once we receive the final product and share it
Great,
with you.
okay. And you'll get with them with some pictures of the Max Brewer Bridge?
Yes, we'll share everything we've got. with
I'll
them.
send you some pictures. If y'all have any pictures that you're fond of. But yeah, I'd like to get some Titusville pictures into the document so it's personalized for us.
And Madam Chair, we'll make sure to do strike through and underline so you'll see what has been changed in the document.
All right, so I think now that we've blessed the document, we need to prioritize what we want to work on first. I say wetlands, the wetland language.
I like that. I make a motion, we work on the wetlands language first,
Second.
on the agenda.
Second.
All right, the motion was made by Member Fliss and seconded by Member Perez that we prioritize cleaning up the wetlands language in the comp plan and the LDRs first. Roll call?
Member Young,
Yes.
Member Delgado,
Yes.
Member Fliss,
Yes?
Member Perez,
Yes.
Member Tucker. I just had a question. Is this a future agenda item? Is that what we're voting on?
Work items first.
What are we doing?
Well, yeah, I guess it would be an agenda item, but we would be working with the planning department on the actual language that's in the comp plan.
Okay, so we're just putting this to the top of the agenda.
That, we're making it our
Okay.
priority.
Yes. Chairwoman Thompson.
Yes. And then we can, once the document's done, it's gonna be a roadmap for us, a gigantic roadmap, which we've needed all along, because we can pick and choose from it for our future agenda items, and it's gonna make life easier for us, I think.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, if you come up to the mic.
Just wondering, I like this concept of a roadmap. So this is a guideline for the future that we're gaining from what we have here to help us make decisions. But it's not a legal document where the language has to be so precise that okay? Is that, yeah. Just to let people know, I mean, we were a little concerned about it because some things could be taken, very, very specifically. And yet I think that's the real spirit behind this is a flexible guideline. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Okay, so at the next agenda, you're going to address wetlands. May take 2 or 3 meetings. You only meet, 10, 12, 11 times a year? Is it remotely possible now that you have this big, they're asking you to do so much that you could meet maybe twice a month instead of just once a month? Or maybe for longer periods of time? Because I just want to see these things actually get done. And do you anticipate you're going to be able to do the wetlands all in 1 month, 1 meeting? Or will it take 2, 3, 4, 5? I just want you to think about that. Maybe you could actually meet twice a month.
We'll figure out what we need. I mean, I picture this as a lot of meetings with Mary and the staff personally, but we'll figure that out. And it's not going to be an agenda item at our next meeting because the staff is the ones that are going to have to do the
work.
How, the actual language in the comp plan. We don't have the ability to do that ourselves, but we'll be working with them. But we're giving staff direction that we want the wetlands policies to be the first thing that gets worked on. Am I saying that right, Brad?
So this document will go to city council. If they approve it, they are basically saying, they support it. They would be basically saying that the TC we approve what TC would be working on. And as, as a guideline, they bless it basically. Now, if you're asking staff to work on solutions of wetlands now, that's a recommendation you would have to make to city council, basically an advisability, asking council to direct staff to dedicate time to work on a specific project. Now, if you'd like to have this topic of wetlands on your agenda to discuss, you can do that. So if I understood your motion earlier about prioritizing wetlands as an agenda for discussion items at your next meeting. That's how I interpreted it. If I misunderstood that, I'd need to know that.
Yeah, well, we can do that. I mean, we've already got the advisability on the tree stuff, so maybe we can move on to something new and exciting.
I think so.
I think we've talked enough about trees, and, right now, we got to wait on staff to do their advisability thing, before we bring the tree thing back, so.
I can say this, the EAR process, that's the 7-year cycle amendment to our comprehensive plan. We're going to involve you at some point in that process. And we have a whole year to have to go through that process to make changes to the comprehensive plan to make them consistent with state statute. So there may be some opportunity where we can make changes or add additional policies related that might have been pulled out of this document or somewhere else. So you will get an opportunity at some point this year.
So so you guys are going to be working on it in the future. Is that a good use of our time at the next meeting to talk about wetlands?
I believe at your next meeting, you've already placed a couple of items. I think at your last meeting, you had added a couple of agenda items that you wanted to talk about at your October meeting. So if you want to talk about wetlands, I think you're going to have 3 items to talk about already at that meeting. So it's up to you. I mean, you can always table one of these items to another discussion as well. If I misunderstood, please tell me, but I was just going to add wetlands as a discussion at your next meeting.
There may be other things that might, since we're going to be working on wetlands anyway for the ear thing, maybe there's other stuff we want to be talking about. Look at the minutes from the last meeting, and that should have our future agenda items right at the end of the minutes. I can't even remember what it was we were talking about for October.
You have a request to talk about the Native Municipal Tree Canopy and Landscape Management Trust Fund is one item.
No, we tabled that until
October.
November, I thought.
No, motion I received is that it was tabled until the October 9th meeting.
Oh, and because Michael will be back then?
I believe so. I don't think he was part of that motion.
That could take a whole meeting. Okay, he's coming back when?
October 11th.
Is that before or after our next meeting? Huh?
Your next meeting is on October 9th. You guys know this day.
I don't think we want to talk about that till Michael comes back. That's why I thought we had tabled it till November. So we may need a motion to retable that till November. Unless you guys want to talk about it and Mike's not even here. That makes no sense. Yeah.
Motion to retable that agenda until the November meeting?
Second.
All right, a motion was made and by Member Fliss and seconded by Member Perez to, I don't know what you would call it, retable, move the table, advance the tabling,
How about reschedule it for the next?
reschedule
November?
the tabling of the Landscape Trust Fund to the November meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so what do you guys want to talk about at the next meeting?
Okay, so the next meeting, this report should be out already September 30th. I just heard, right?
No, that's-
We are supposed to get it back from the consultant by September 30th. That's their deadline. And then we'll review it and make a determination. I don't think we'll have it in time to bring it back to you by your October meeting, if that's what you were asking for. So we'll make a determination as to whether to bring it back to you or to bring it straight to city council.
But that's what I was concerned that would happen.
So do you want to see it back at your next meeting then? Is that what you're looking, or at a future meeting before it goes to city council?
Yeah, we'd like to see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then,
I mean, is that a yes from you guys, or?
Yeah, I'd like to see it before it goes to city council.
okay. Then it will be brought before city council after the election. So probably late this year or possibly early next year is the earliest where then we'd be able to give it to them. So all this will do is just delay when city council ultimately sees it, that's all. So we can certainly bring it back to you. I think when we get it back from the deadline on the 30th, we're not going to have time to get it onto your agenda for the October meeting. I can tell you that. That's too close. So we probably at the earliest time would be the November meeting.
Well, I think that it should go to the new city council anyway.
Okay.
Why would we saddle the new city council that an old city council approved one meeting before they take
That's
their new
fine, yeah, I
positions?
just want you to be aware of that. So then it comes to you, the earliest potentially be your November meeting. And then it'll go to city council potentially, at the earliest, it'll probably be the December meeting.
That's fine.
Okay.
All right. So what do you guys want to talk about next meeting?
Brad, where are we on the synthetic turf ordinances?
We're still working on a draft. Council finally gave us direction. We had to go to them several times, but they finally gave us direction to work on that, so that's something we're working on. I can't give you a timeline as when we'll give it back to them, but we're getting close.
So all of the stuff, I think it was 5 items from several council meetings ago that they gave you advisability. Are any of those close enough for us to be looking at?
Give me a moment, I'll see what I can tell you. I don't have a date for the artificial turf ordinance. I don't have a date for the minimum native vegetation and landscaping ordinance. These are fairly recently approved advisability, so it's going to take a few months for us to get those completed and advertised. Those are the 2 ordinances. I think we addressed the other items that you had asked for back several months ago. I think there were 5 items that were approved by city council. I can look into the status of each of those, and I can respond to you in an email with the status of each of that if you like. I just won't be able to provide that now.
All right. Actually, I've gone off the agenda anyway. We should be on petitions and requests from the public.
Darn.
I'm sorry. Does anybody want to speak? Y'all good? All right. Now we're on to reports. You have a staff report?
No, ma'am.
No staff report. How about you guys? Any of y'all have a report?
I already gave my report about the FDEP did my yard.
Hey, at least you'll know what you're using to water your plants with. Before, it was just a mystery.
Or it may scare you to death.
Chairwoman Thompson,
Yep.
I'm still confused on the prioritized wetlands and comp plan. Is that for the next agenda, or was that just a request for staff?
That was a request for staff, you know, I guess as we're moving forward with this report. So, yeah. That's not an agenda item for the next meeting unless you guys want to make it, but I don't see any point in
So should
talking
we
about.
take it back?
Huh?
I withdraw that motion? Is that what we should do?
Would that make things simpler?
I mean, I just wanted to be sure I understood it myself.
Yeah.
so.
We could withdraw that motion so that there isn't any confusion, because I think that would be something that we would want to vote on at a later date, actually. So thank you for bringing that up. You want to withdraw your motion?
So I withdraw that motion?
You withdraw your second?
I withdraw my second.
Okay, so the motion to prioritize wetlands in the immediate future has been withdrawn. We'll address it later.
And now
Do you have any presentations that they want to bring up, or friends that do something fun for a change? No?
We
Okay.
can bring back to you a draft one of these ordinances that we're working on.
Okay, that would be good.
I have
Okay.
an idea for another meeting, a next meeting though.
What's that?
Okay, so I was listening to NPR the other morning and found out that the state of Florida has about a year before we run out of potable water by some, I don't know what the name of the organization is, but it made me wonder, how can we find out what our projected water use is and how it relates to our recharge areas and the amount of water that we actually have? How many more customers can we, how many more households can we sustainably grow before we end up running out of water? And isn't that something that we should start thinking about?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Well, we did ask that question at the workshop. And that was a question about capacity, which is not addressed in this report. Do you guys remember that?
There was a report a couple of years ago, or about a year ago rather, that was completed. I can certainly share it with you. It was brought before the Planning and Zoning Commission as part of a concurrency review and City Council. And an amendment that was made to the comprehensive plan related to water.
So it's actually before we've had all of this crazy outrageous growth?
It was completed last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, if you can bring that report, that would be fun to look at, Brad.
Could I comment on that a little bit? The concept of how much water is left is something that's being appointed all across the U.S. right now in different places, including Florida. And there, again, we have so many divisions of different universities and different agencies that are working on parts of this. But it represents a modeling project, and I think it's probably been done a couple times. You'd have to dig for it. University of Florida's got some people that are involved in that. But you have to look at the capture of rainwater, stormwater. You have to look at groundwater resources, and we know those are getting depleted. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're asking is an absolute central question for the future of Florida that, our state government doesn't want to deal with, but I think all of us have to be aware of. And I did see probably 2 months ago now, a projection by somebody, I can't remember who it was, that says we are really not doing well. Right. And if you look at the projections for increase of population, and then with that, it's not just the number of people, but it's all that industry and what space is doing right now. You just would not, I think they're going to run out of water, fresh water, big time over on Merritt Island with the space industry. Because the big rockets take 1.5 million gallons just for cooling over there each time they take off. And they're not just using groundwater, they're bringing water over from Cocoa, their steam. So that's a huge question. And it goes way beyond Titusville, but it's the kind of thing that would be great if we could get together with others, with the county, with the state, and with the federal government, and kind of figure out what the best science is, again, about how much water resource is available. We can't do desalination here. No. That's not feasible. And so great question, but I think it's way beyond most of us to get an estimate.
No, I think that it's not beyond us to find out
Okay.
what the what our recharge rate is, because they know what the recharge rate is. They've been collecting water from the wells for some time, so they have a real idea about what.
For locally, you mean?
For local, for.
Right, right. St. John's River is a primary organization, I think, the Water Management District. And those would be the wells primarily on the other side of 95 over there that they've been monitoring for a long time. And I'm right with you. I agree with you.
So my idea is that once we have an idea of the expected growth for the area with regards to what the recharge rate is, how much water we have, there are going to be other cities that have calculated that also, and then we can, as you're suggesting, propose to the city that we get together with the other organizations and see the dire states we're really in, because we really have to go around a particularly less inclined to recognize, increasing sea levels and reducing water levels governor.
And that's gonna, yes, right,
So-
exactly.
So, oops.
You're right, and that makes it more complicated too with climate change. But even immediately, next few years is what you're thinking about. They said
1 year.
1 year.
Is what this group, it's some kind of budgeting group, and what they project.
Interesting to see what their numbers are all like.
I don't remember the name. I wrote it down somewhere, but I forgot it. But
Okay.
I heard it on NPR.
Interesting.
Day before yesterday.
Interesting project. For Florida, they said. Okay, and then our own issue here is even more dire than a lot of places because of that development plus space. And so it makes it even worse.
All right. So with that, we've been through the agenda. We're good, unless anybody has anything else. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jay and Chris and Gabby.
Thank you.
Great job. We really, really appreciate it. It was fun, and we're really grateful because we've needed this. And thank you, Brad, because I don't know whose idea it was to hire them, but thank you.